Hey, Raiders fans, let's get into the thick of it because there's a lot happening in Las Vegas. And some of the moves on the roster are going to surprise even the most diehard followers of the silver and black. Right now, the focus is on some of the offensive and defensive players who might be on the bubble. And it's not just about performance on the field. It's about versatility, potential, and what each player brings to the team beyond the stat sheet. Take the running back situation, for instance. There's been a lot of chatter behind the scenes about Raheem Most, and while he's had some opportunities this preseason, the question is whether the Raiders see him as part of their long-term plan or whether they're ready to pivot and give some younger players more opportunities. Ashton Gentry has been impressing in practice, showing that he can handle passing duties effectively, which makes you wonder if the team might prioritize players who contribute in multiple ways, especially those who can step into special teams roles. When you're thinking about roster construction, having a 32-year-old running back taking snaps on special teams isn't exactly ideal, and if the coaching staff has confidence in a younger back like Gentry, that changes the equation completely. It's about maximizing resources, ensuring depth, and keeping players who can impact multiple facets of the game. Now, speaking of versatility, the Raiders have a few players who might not light up the stat sheet every week, but bring value in subtle ways. Sincere McCormick, Chris Collier, and Zamir White all offer different skill sets, from run blocking to special teams contributions. The team has to weigh whether they're keeping someone like Most purely because of history or connections, or if it makes more sense to invest in players who can cover multiple responsibilities, especially in a league where roster spots are precious and every million-dollar contract has to be justified. Preseason stats don't tell the full story, but they can be a signal. Most numbers so far, averaging around 5 yards per carry with no touchdowns or first downs, are decent but not necessarily irreplaceable, especially when a player like Gentry is showing promise. And when you add in the special teams factor, the case for a surprise cut starts to become clearer. It's not just about who can carry the ball effectively. It's about who can stay on the field, contribute in multiple areas, and give the team the flexibility to cover weak spots elsewhere. Wide receiver is another position where the Raiders are juggling potential versus immediate readiness. Tommy Mellott, drafted in the 6th round, is a player with immense athletic talent, but still learning to adjust to the speed and complexity of the NFL. Coming from an FCS program, even as a Heisman winner, the transition is enormous. You can see flashes of what he's capable of, but he's buried on the depth chart behind more experienced receivers, and the team has to decide if keeping him on the roster now is worth it versus developing him elsewhere. These are the kinds of decisions that make roster cuts so fascinating because they reveal not just talent evaluation, but the team strategy. Do you keep a high-ceiling player in the long term, even if they can't contribute this season? Or do you prioritize immediate performance to give the team the best shot at winning now? For a team like the Raiders, balancing those decisions is critical, especially when the margin between making a playoff run and struggling is often razor-thin. The offensive line has its own stories of surprise possibilities. Players like Veer Munford are technically experienced and provide depth, but when you look at the preseason grades, there are concerns about consistency in pass protection. The Raiders are trying to balance having developmental prospects like Charles Grant with players who can immediately step in and stabilize the line. Dalton Wagner has been performing well, and from a resource allocation standpoint, it might make more sense to prioritize keeping a player like him over Munford. It's a classic question of potential versus reliability, but in the trenches, reliability often wins. Offensive tackles have a unique responsibility. They're not just protecting the quarterback, they're anchoring the offense. If the Raiders are looking at interior depth and want to invest in a player who can contribute across multiple formations, spending money saved from cutting a veteran or a player on the fringe makes practical sense. Shifting to the defensive side, there are players whose futures might be just as uncertain. Linebackers like Cody Lindenberg bring youth and potential, but are competing with high-profile veterans brought in after the draft. When the team signs players like Devin White, Orlando Roberts, Jamal Adams, and Jermaine Pratt, it signals a shift in expectations and priorities. The only linebacker drafted that year was Lindenberg, a 7th-round pick, which could indicate that the front office was hedging its bets or looking for specific traits in younger players. If you cut Lindenberg, you save some money, but you also risk losing a player with developmental upside. And when you consider how the Raiders have brought in personnel from other organizations, it's clear they're building a very specific type of roster, one that blends experience with high-upside younger talent. Players like Lindenberg are smart, capable in run-stopping, and they have room to grow. That makes him a compelling retention candidate, even if he's not immediately starting. Defensive tackles like Lekei Fu are another example. Fu has had opportunities due to injuries and roster changes, but durability and practice availability are concerns. The Raiders traded for Thomas Booker and are experimenting with other interior linemen, which means Fu's spot could be in jeopardy simply because the team wants to see younger players develop. The NFL is brutal in this regard. Availability, versatility, and readiness often outweigh previous performance or reputation. And for defensive tackle, where rotational depth is critical, having someone who can consistently practice and perform is more valuable than someone with uncertain availability. Corners and defensive backs are no different. Darren Holmes has shown flashes in games, but the emergence of players like Kai Blue Kelly and Greedy Vance in practice and preseason matchups has shifted the conversation. Versatility is key, especially in a system that is evolving into more cover 3 concepts. Players who can adapt, cover multiple positions, and execute complex schemes will have an edge over players who might be talented but limited in their skill set. The Raiders are trying to assemble a unit that can switch seamlessly between roles, and sometimes that means making tough calls on players who have pedigree or connections but don't fit the current vision perfectly. The beauty of preseason is seeing these storylines play out in real time. Rookie wide receivers learning the speed of the NFL, young linebackers taking reps alongside veterans, running backs adjusting to new roles, and corners adapting to complex coverages all provide a glimpse into the team's future. Raiders fans are witnessing not just games, but decisions that will shape the next season. And it's fascinating because the team isn't just cutting or keeping players based on one stat line. It's about evaluating the whole package: performance, potential, versatility, and fit within a system that is constantly evolving. Every roster move and every surprise cut candidate sparks debate. Fans, analysts, and insiders all weigh in, but ultimately, the coaching staff and front office must make decisions that serve both the present and the long-term vision. Players who might seem expendable now could become pivotal pieces later if developed properly, while veterans who seem secure can find themselves edged out by younger, more adaptable talent. The interplay between youth, experience, skill, and scheme is the heartbeat of these decisions. And for a team like Las Vegas, getting it right could mean the difference between contention and mediocrity. The preseason also highlights another aspect: financial strategy. Every roster spot saved, every contract managed, and every investment in a versatile player has ripple effects. Cutting a veteran or moving on from a player who doesn't fit the system frees up resources for someone who can contribute in multiple ways. The money saved can be reinvested in positions that need depth, or even to acquire a player who fills a gap the team hasn't adequately addressed. The balance between roster construction, salary management, and player development is intricate, and the Raiders are navigating it in real time. Now let's dive even deeper into the roster because the Raiders preseason is revealing some intriguing patterns, and the decisions they make over the next few weeks will shape the season in ways that casual fans might not fully grasp yet. Wide receivers like Tommy Mellott are a perfect example of this delicate balancing act between raw talent and immediate contribution. Mellott was drafted in the 6th round, and he comes with an extraordinary athletic pedigree, having won the FCS Heisman Trophy and the Walter Payton Award. Those accolades speak volumes about his potential. But the NFL is an entirely different beast. The speed, the complexity of route concepts, and the physicality all ramp up exponentially. In practice, Mellott is still adjusting, learning to read defenses and react to coverage at NFL speed, which is something that can't be rushed. Despite this, you can see glimpses of brilliance, the kind of explosiveness and athleticism that could one day make him a dangerous weapon in the passing game. But right now, The Raiders have to weigh whether keeping him active on the roster for this season is more valuable than creating room for players who can contribute immediately. Meanwhile, the coaching staff is evaluating the running backs with a very nuanced lens. Raheem Most has had some opportunities, but his role has been limited, and the numbers reflect that. He's averaging a solid yardage per carry, but he hasn't scored, and his first down production is minimal. Meanwhile, younger backs like Ashton Gentry are showing versatility that Most doesn't bring to the table. Gentry has been able to handle receiving duties, run blocking, and even contribute in areas like special teams, a dimension that's crucial in roster construction. When you look at a team like the Raiders, every roster spot matters, and the ability to field players who can perform multiple roles effectively is invaluable. This isn't just about cutting someone who underperforms. It's about optimizing the roster to maximize depth and flexibility, especially in a league where injuries and scheme changes demand adaptability. The offensive line is another area of constant evaluation. Thayer Munford has been a focal point in discussions about potential surprise cuts. On paper, he brings experience and positional versatility, but the preseason grades and tapes suggest inconsistencies, particularly in pass protection. Offensive tackles are the foundation of an offense. They protect the quarterback, anchor the edge, and stabilize the run game. But Munford's performance has raised questions about whether he's the right fit as a starter or even a reliable backup. Dalton Wagner, on the other hand, has shown consistency and the kind of dependability that teams crave in the trenches. The Raiders are looking at every dollar and roster spot strategically. Cutting Munford might free up money that can be reinvested in a player like Dalton Risner or another interior lineman who fits the team's vision more closely. It's not just about raw talent. It's about fit, scheme, and durability, which are all critical for a unit tasked with protecting the quarterback and establishing a run game. On the defensive side, the storylines are equally compelling. Linebackers like Cody Lindenberg offer youth and developmental upside, but they're competing with a wave of veterans brought in after the draft. Devin White, Orlando Roberts, Jamal Adams, and Jermaine Pratt create a high bar for rookies, and Lindenberg's performance has to be measured not just against his own potential, but against these high-profile signings. Yet, Lindenberg brings a smart football IQ, solid run-stopping ability, and positional awareness that makes him a candidate to stick even in a crowded field. In many ways, the Raiders are thinking long-term with players like him. They're balancing immediate results with future upside, aiming to develop a roster that can sustain success while still competing week to week. The delicate interplay between rookies and veterans, between development and contribution, is what makes this phase of the season so fascinating for fans who are paying attention to the nuances beyond the scoreboard. The evaluation process is relentless. Players who were once considered locks may find themselves on the chopping block, while those who seemed on the fringe may rise due to adaptability and performance in practice. It's a reminder that in the NFL, no spot is guaranteed, and every decision matters. The Raiders are taking a forward-thinking approach, weighing immediate contribution against long-term upside, all while considering salary, scheme fit, and roster versatility. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Josh Allen's shocking move from the Buffalo Bills to the Las Vegas Raiders has sent shockwaves throughout the NFL, leaving fans, analysts, and even rival teams scrambling to comprehend the full implications of this unexpected transfer. Rumors had swirled for weeks, but the announcement became official in a press conference that appeared to catch many by surprise, as Allen confirmed his commitment to the Raiders with a mix of excitement and solemnity, emphasizing the desire for new challenges and the pursuit of a championship in a different environment. The chatter around the league is relentless, with commentators debating whether this decision was motivated purely by financial incentives, long-term career strategy, or the allure of joining a team with a rejuvenated roster and fresh offensive potential. Speculation is also rife regarding the internal dynamics within Buffalo that may have contributed to Allen's departure, with whispers about disagreements over coaching philosophies, offensive schemes, and roster building that allegedly made staying in Buffalo increasingly complicated for a quarterback of his caliber. Meanwhile, Las Vegas insiders are abuzz with excitement, portraying Allen as the transformative piece that could propel the Raiders into perennial playoff contention, igniting a fan base desperate for a franchise-altering figure. Social media has exploded with reactions, ranging from disbelief to jubilation, as users dissect every angle, from jersey sales to potential sponsorships, and even the subtle cultural shift this move represents within the NFL hierarchy, highlighting how a single transaction can ripple across multiple spheres of professional football. Analysts are drawing comparisons to other monumental quarterback transfers in league history, suggesting that this might be one of the most consequential moves of the decade, raising questions about team identity, leadership structures, and the complex calculus of player loyalty versus professional opportunity. Betting lines and fantasy football projections have already adjusted, reflecting a growing consensus that Allen's arrival could redefine offensive strategies for Las Vegas, while simultaneously challenging Buffalo to recalibrate its quarterback succession plan and offensive vision, sparking endless debates in locker rooms, media panels, and fan forums about the delicate balance between talent retention and organizational adaptation. The rumors surrounding Josh Allen's decision to leave Buffalo intensified after reports emerged about ongoing contract negotiations that allegedly hit a stalemate over terms related to guaranteed money, performance incentives, and control over offensive decision-making. Insiders suggest that Allen's camp was particularly focused on securing assurances that would protect his long-term career trajectory, while also aligning with a team that matched his competitive ambitions. Meanwhile, the Raiders have reportedly been working behind the scenes for months, laying the groundwork for this blockbuster acquisition, cultivating relationships with key decision-makers, and offering a vision that seems to have resonated strongly with Allen, who has long expressed admiration for Las Vegas' organizational ambition and willingness to invest in premier talent. Fans are now speculating about how Allen will mesh with the Raiders' coaching staff and offensive schemes, with whispers hinting at potential changes to maximize his strengths, such as a more aggressive passing game, creative use of play action, and leveraging his mobility to extend drives and exploit defensive mismatches. Sports commentators and former players are weighing in with varied perspectives, some suggesting that this is a calculated risk that could either vault the Raiders into Super Bowl contention or expose gaps in team cohesion that may become problematic under the intense spotlight of NFL scrutiny. The social media sphere has become a breeding ground for theories, memes, and heated discussions as observers dissect the nuances of Allen's playing style, leadership qualities, and potential impact on the Raider Nation identity, drawing parallels with historic quarterback transitions in other franchises. Local businesses and sponsors are reportedly adjusting marketing strategies to capitalize on the hype surrounding Allen's arrival, reflecting the broader economic impact such a high-profile move can generate beyond the confines of the stadium. Conversations in sports bars, online forums, and national talk shows alike are dominated by speculation about the psychological effect on Buffalo players who may feel a mixture of betrayal and inspiration, as well as on Las Vegas teammates who are tasked with integrating a superstar without disrupting existing chemistry, underscoring the delicate human element that accompanies every blockbuster trade in professional sports. The narrative of Allen's move is thus being painted as a complex interplay of ambition, loyalty, strategy, and risk, a story that continues to evolve with every rumor, comment, and insider report, captivating audiences who are eager to witness the next chapter in what promises to be a transformative period for both franchises. Among NFL circles, the chatter about Josh Allen's transition to the Raiders has reached almost legendary proportions, with insiders suggesting that this move was not merely a product of salary negotiations or team dynamics, but also a manifestation of a larger strategic vision that could reshape the landscape of professional football. Rumors indicate that Allen's decision may have been influenced by a combination of personal ambition, perceived gaps in Buffalo's championship trajectory, and an enticing promise of autonomy in shaping the Raiders' offensive identity. Analysts are poring over footage, comparing playbooks, and speculating about how Allen's arm strength, mobility, and decision-making will integrate with Las Vegas offensive personnel, generating endless debate about whether this team can now realistically compete at the highest level in a league where every margin counts. Fans and commentators alike are drawn into discussions about how this transfer could affect draft strategies, free agency moves, and long-term roster construction, with whispers suggesting that the Raiders' management may have a multi-year blueprint that positions Allen as the cornerstone of a dynasty in the making. The cultural ripple effect is equally significant, with social media platforms teeming with speculation, fan reactions, and playful hypotheticals about Allen's jersey sales, endorsement opportunities, and even potential influence on stadium atmosphere and city identity. Meanwhile, Buffalo's community is navigating a spectrum of emotions, ranging from disillusionment to grudging respect, as observers ponder the team's next steps in securing a new quarterback who can uphold, or perhaps redefine, the franchise's competitive vision. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.